Local news, national news, even feel-good news. Delivering the topics that are relevant to you.
That's why I listen to Joe. He covers it all.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
All right, so I got to start the show with what is possibly an embarrassing confession. I got to make a confession, and Laurel and Paul, you guys know how much I enjoy confessing myself on the radio, right?
You know, for some reason you do.
I do.
You really do.
And pretty much every time I make a confession, it's embarrassing for myself. And I don't know why I do this. I had to just keep my mouth shut and not make any confessions.
It's called owning up.
I'm owning up.
You feel better when you go to confession, Joe.
So I want to confess, and I had this conversation with my wife this morning, Ronnie Sue, sweet Ronnie Sue. Before I left the house, I said this exact same thing to my wife, and she was a bit gobsmacked. She's like, "Wait, what are you talking about? What, are you serious?" So here is my confession. I think that I am about to finish my first book.
Really?
And I'm not talking about writing a book. I am about to finish my first book.
Meaning you've never finished a whole book in your entire life.
Now,
see Dick run. See Jane.
So Ronnie Sue says, well, you mean like what, since college? And I'm like, no. You mean like high school, she says? And I'm like, not really.
You've never read a book for a book report or anything?
I'm going to be I'm confessing myself here. I'm going to be completely honest with you. That's all I can do with you guys is be honest. And that is, I pretty much skated through school. I gave it a marginal effort. Now, this is no excuse, but I will at least give you the reason why I skated mostly through school. And that was because I was undergoing cancer treatments at the time. So in my mind, I'm like, if I don't live, I'm not reading this damn book. I'm not doing a book report, which is dumb. It's dumb. It's defeatism. I'm not proud of myself for this.
You were a kid.
And I remember as a younger child, I remember a book series that I really enjoyed, and I did read cover to cover, were the Encyclopedia Brown mystery books. Do you remember Encyclopedia Brown? I think they still have them. I don't think there's been any new ones. If there was, heaven knows, I'd probably be reading those. And then somebody said, well, what about the Bible? I am still reading the Bible. I don't know if you know this.
You never finish the Bible.
You don't.
You read the Bible. No,
you read the Bible continuously. And even if you've read every word in the Bible, you still read the Bible every day. You continue to read the Bible every day. And that's what I was reading the Bible this morning. But I'm reading another book called The Unsaved Christian. And I am real sure that I'm going to finish that book because I'm having a difficult time putting it down. And I bought the book American Prometheus, which is the book from which the movie Oppenheimer was based. American Prometheus is the story of Robert Oppenheimer, and that's where the movie came from. Oppenheimer, honestly, I think has more pages than the Bible. I mean, it is a big, big book. And I thought to myself, I'll read that before the movie comes out. Yeah, that didn't happen. And I'll be honest with you, I hate reading. I hate reading. It's not that I'm illiterate. I know how to read, but I read all day long. All day I read for work. And so consequently, I don't find reading to be fun. Now, Laurel, I know that you read like all the, correct me if I'm wrong, have you not read like all the Harry Potter books and all those things?
Yeah. Name a series and I've read all of them.
I mean,
Unfortunate Events, Twilight, name them, I've read them.
I mean, you read books cover to cover. Paul, do you read books cover to cover?
I do, but not very often, but I do. I have read numerous binded books in my life.
New guy, Greg, our new producer, Greg Rhodes. Greg, what about you? Do you read books cover to cover?
Not very often, no.
Yeah. And then these days, as Jude points out in the chat group, we've got audiobooks, podcasts that we can listen to. And you can multitask and you can have the book playing while you're in the kitchen cooking or while you're drifting off to sleep or while, whatever it is. It's just so the book I'm reading right now is and I don't remember the author's name, forgive me, but the title of the book is The Unsaved Christian. And it is about all of these Christians here in America and around the world, but really here in America, that say they are Christian, that believe in God, but that's pretty much where it ends. So and they think that they're saved. They think that they're going to go to heaven. And I was a one of those same Christians. I'm sorry, who did you say it was, Greg, the author? Dean and Sarah. That's not Dean and Sarah. It's Dean and Sarah. But it's such a compelling book, and it is so interesting. And, for missionary groups that go out to Africa trying to reach the unreached people groups that have never been introduced to Jesus Christ, never been introduced to God, we have people right here in our own backyards that claim to be Christians. And I know this because I was one. I was what the book calls a cultural Christian. So I was a cultural Christian up until about 5 years ago, when I was baptized 5 years ago, and I accepted Jesus Christ into my life. And again, I don't mean to make this overly religious here today. I really wanted to talk more about how I don't read more so than my faith. But the book is, gosh, it is so good. It is so interesting. Particularly because that was the life I used to live. I used to say, "Oh, of course I believe in God," and then I remember there was a very good friend of mine, very old Jewish man, and I remember he kind of cornered me one day, and he said, "Do you believe that Jesus Christ died for your sins?" And I'm embarrassed, but my response was, "Bah, bah." I didn't know how to respond to that. And he said, if you don't believe that Jesus Christ died for your sins, then stop calling yourself a Christian. And of course he's right. Of course he was right. And that has always stuck in my head, that conversation with that elderly Jewish man has always stuck in my head. And I realized at that point that I've got to make some sort of decision. I either got to declare that I'm not a Christian, or I have got to accept Jesus Christ as my Savior, which, of course, I went with the latter, not the former. But anyhow, good book. Pick it up. But if you're like me, if you just hate reading, I'd love to hear from you. I know it may come as a shock that this might be my first book since childhood, since Encyclopedia Brown. This is my first book. Those
do you read magazine articles or anything like that?
No.
Do you ever open up read that way?
No.
You read mostly now on screen, right?
I read on screen, or I'll print stuff out. And if you're watching in the chat group, I'll print out just stacks and stacks and stacks of paper. I am killing trees like
the book you are reading now. Is it a physical book or is it a Kindle?
No, it's a physical book.
Physical book. Okay.
I don't like to read. Again, reading on screens is work to me. Reading, printouts is work to me. And there's just so much video options instead and audio options. I hate reading. I know that sounds dumb, but I hate reading. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. If you want to call and congratulate me on what will be my first book, and I'm only like halfway through it. Right? So maybe this is way premature. Because oftentimes I buy so many books. I will buy books with the intention of, oh my gosh, like the American Prometheus. I'm going to buy this book. I had to special order the book because I couldn't find it anywhere because of the forthcoming movie at the time.
Let me ask you, you say you hate reading, but you're halfway through this book and you're promoting it. So while you're reading this book and you're really getting into it, do you hate reading? Do you find it laboring or something that you just don't want to do, but you're doing anyway? Or are you enjoying it?
I'm enjoying this book because I can so readily relate to it. As a former cultural Christian and now being a biblical Christian, I really can relate to this book. So this book hits me close to home.
Good.
And I think
great.
and it is because of that I am certain that I'm going to finish this book. And if not, I have now gone on record with God and country that I have vowed to finish this book. So I think at this point I'm on the hook. I have to finish this book, and maybe I should finish it sooner rather than later. But anyhow, if you want to call up and congratulate me on reading my first book since childhood, then by all means, 844-580-WDBO, or you can use the open mic in the WDBO app. I will be signing autographs in the conference room at 7 o'clock for anybody who wants one. Just congratulating myself on having read my own book.
He'll be signing coloring books, and those are the only ones he actually has ever finished.
That's right. And honestly...
I probably haven't even finished a coloring book.
So honestly, I have been writing a book for the last 5 years. I've been writing a book, and I have written more of a book than I have read in the last 5 years.
So do you dictaphone it? Do you talk it, or
no?
I write it?
I have to write it. I type it out with my computer. Do you want to know what the book's about?
Sure.
I can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I have to wait.
Fight Club.
I have to wait to see if I'm going to actually publish it and do something with the book, or if I'm actually going to finish the book.
Well, you have a lot of different chapters in your life that are very, very interesting.
Well, that's the thing. That's exactly right. And that I've got a lot. I've got a story to tell, and I want to.
Yes, you do.
I'm trying to get it all out of my head and get it off my chest, and I've got a lot of stories to tell.
That's the opening line of the book. Is I read my first book when I was 55 years old. Opening line.
And so I decided I would be an author at 56.
So now I'm an author.
Now that I'm an expert at literary works, I'll tell you, we watch Jeopardy every night. My wife, Ronnie Sue, and I, we watch Jeopardy every night. And whenever there's a category that comes on of literature or authors, I always let out a guffaw. Oh, my gosh.
You check out.
And I'm like, no one reads. How do people know these things? And I'm always astonished that people know literary things, because evidently some of y'all read
a lot,
like books and things. Yes. I mean, it just blows my mind that people read for fun. I don't find it to be fun. But I'm very glad you found something you relate to and that you're interested in reading. I mean, I appreciate that. I'm very proud of you, Joe. Thank you. And if you like Paul, if you would like to heap on your praise and congratulations, I will be accepting that for the next 23 minutes at 844-580-WDBO or in the open mic and the WDBO app. Now, coming up in a few minutes, we're going to have all the headlines that you missed while you're at work today. And, man, I've got audio of Joe Biden that I've not heard on any other radio show. Now, I don't listen to every radio show all the time, and maybe it's been on another radio show. But I've got audio of Joe Biden, old, senile, demented Joe Biden, getting crossways with a bunch of union workers, of all people, who should be allies of Biden. And Biden shushing a woman, one of his campaign aides. Shush! He literally says the word shush, which I didn't even know people say that word out loud. But you're going to want to hear this audio of Joe Biden and in his demented mind how he goes off on people. And we're going to get into a Pentagon report now saying that dementia may pose a national security threat. And I think Joe Biden is the perfect example of that. So we'll have that for you coming up after the bottom of the hour. But coming up next, the stories you missed while you're at work today.
Trying to grab all the groceries in one trip? Oof, not how you would have done that. You know sometimes less is more. Like when you drive less and save with the USAA annual mileage discount. USAA. Get a quote today.
Now, the three big things you need to know.
3. The first trailer is being released for A24's Dream Scenario. It stars Nicolas Cage as a college professor who begins to appear in the dreams of strangers, and then the dreams start to turn into nightmares. The cast also includes Julianne Nicholson, Michael Cera, and Dylan Baker. 2. 5 Americans are back on U.S. soil after being imprisoned in Iran. They touched down in Virginia this morning. This comes after the Biden administration agreed to a deal exchanging the group of Iranian nationals held in the U.S. and also giving Tehran access to $6 billion of its own oil reserve that had been frozen through sanctions. 1. President Biden says Russia alone has the power to end the war in Ukraine immediately. He addressed world leaders at the UN General Assembly today. Biden said the U.S. and its allies around the world will continue to stand with Ukraine.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk.
You may not have finished a book, but did you ever buy the Cliff Notes for books?
Oh, yeah. That was kind of my point. I mean, when I say I skated through college and skated through high schools, because I always took the shortcuts. I didn't cheat, but I I certainly didn't make the most of my educational opportunities. I just didn't. You know, I was going through cancer treatments. I was going through radiation and chemo from my junior year in high school through my junior year in college. And so I had other struggles going on with my life at that time, and I phoned in my college and latter high school educations.
Joe Kelley, that is the best thing I have heard all day. I laughed so hard. I'm not reading this book for no book report. I got cancer treatments. I love you, Joe Kelley.
Yeah. That's me.
I've never been big on reading myself, but I'm dyslexic and I have a learning disability, and that's always made reading far more difficult for me. It took me 6 months to read The Secret Garden. Loved the book, but it took me 6 months. So, yeah, I'm just not big on reading either. So I can't blame you, Joe.
I will listen to books on tape, and I always have great intentions. I'll see a book and think, oh, I've got to read this book. And I'll read like 3 or 4 pages, and I'm like, what was I thinking?
Hey, Joe, I am with you. I've never read a book from cover to cover. Maybe a Dr. Seuss book.
Yeah.
Probably just looking at the pictures. But I did read the Bible from cover to cover once. So I understand where you're coming from. I skated through school, too.
Yeah, I squandered my educational opportunities, both in high school and in college. I would love a chance for a do-over on my education, and I would pay much closer attention and actually put in the work. Whereas I didn't put in the work that was necessary to really excel academically in college and in the latter half of high school. All right, if you're just joining us here on the Joe Kelley Show, and yet I have a radio show, which is crazy. If you're just joining us here on the Joe Kelley Show on WDBO, here are the stories that you missed while you were at work today. 8 hours ago, CNN reported that a Moscow court rejects an appeal by the Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich against his pretrial detention on espionage charges. That means he's going to be jailed until at least November. 8 hours ago, Fox News reported that the House is going to hold the first Biden impeachment inquiry next Thursday. Note to ourselves, we'll probably need to look at whether or not we're going to carry that here on WDBO and to what extent. That'll be next Thursday. 6 hours ago, The Hill reports that the GOP to hold their first impeachment hearing next week, and they're going to be subpoenaing Hunter Biden's bank records. 6 hours ago, New York Times reported that President Biden calls on nations to stand up to Russia's naked aggression and urged unity in tackling climate change, AI, and more at the UN General Assembly. 5 hours ago, a daycare operator and her tenant are now facing federal charges after the death of a 1-year-old boy who was exposed to fentanyl at a New York City daycare facility. Evidently, the daycare operator had sprinkled fentanyl on all of the children's pillows so that they would go to sleep and they wouldn't actually have to do anything with them. Well, it killed a 1-year-old child. I, as any other parent, would be apoplectic. You would have a hard time restraining me in a scenario like that. Fox News reported 5 hours ago that the House GOP has scrapped a vote on a continuing resolution to fund the government. 4 hours ago, Associated Press reported that a man accused of killing nearly 24 old women in Texas and convicted of 2 slayings has himself been killed in prison. All right. 4 hours ago, New York Times reported the U.S. is discussing with Saudi Arabia the terms of a mutual defense treaty that would resemble American pacts with Japan and South Korea. How interesting. We have those pacts with Japan because of the conclusion of World War II, and South Korea because of the cessation of hostilities during the Korean War. 4 hours ago, Kevin Costner reached a divorce settlement with his ex-wife, Christine Bumgarner. 4 hours ago, the gun used in the ambush killing of a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy appears to have been purchased legally. The debris field, this according to ABC News 2 hours ago, the debris field found outside Charleston, South Carolina, is confirmed to be the remains of the F-35 jet that went missing. This is really weird. 51 minutes ago, AP reported Temple University President Joanne A. Epps dies after collapsing on stage during a memorial service. And lastly, 4 minutes ago, Danny Masterson's wife has filed for divorce. Danny Masterson just sentenced to 30 years to life in prison for rape.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. News, weather, traffic, all the things you want on your drive home. Plus, Joe Kelley being, well, Joe Kelley. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's news and talk, WDBO.
By the way, yesterday was National Cheeseburger Day, and I got cheeseburgers on the way home. We stopped at Ford's Garage and got cheeseburgers. You ever had the cheeseburgers at Ford's Garage? They're all right. They're okay.
I'd like to try them. I'm a big burger guy.
I am too. I love just a thick, greasy, sloppy cheeseburger. I love drive-through cheeseburgers. I love fast food cheeseburgers. I love Wendy's and McDonald's cheeseburgers. I mean, I love cheeseburgers. If that was
just the cheeseburger connoisseur, then,
I am, man. I
had a buddy of mine that would travel and look for the best cheeseburgers. Yeah. So everywhere that he would go, he'd look for this dive place. And, you know, he kind of kept track of all the different cheeseburgers he's had in his life.
It's amazing how many good cheeseburgers there are out there. All right, I want you to hear this audio that I've not heard elsewhere. I've not heard on any other radio shows. Doesn't mean it didn't air on another radio show. I just haven't heard it, and I wanted you guys to hear this. So forgive me if you've already heard this, but Joe Biden went to Michigan to go talk to union workers, and he is face-to-face with people. Helmet-wearing, reflective gear, vest-wearing union workers, and he is answering questions. And one of the union workers grills him about guns. Now, there's a couple things I want you to pay attention to. First of all, Joe Biden drops an obscenity here, which, of course, you won't hear on the radio. And then you're going to hear Joe Biden literally shush someone. He says, shush. And the person he is shushing is a woman on his campaign staff. Now, I don't know about you, but in my world, first of all, you don't shush anybody, and you certainly don't shush a lady. You don't shush a woman, and again, particularly a woman who works for you, who's on your campaign staff, who is working to help you. This woman was trying to help Joe Biden get out of the situation that he was in, but Joe Biden shushed her and continued to dig himself a deeper hole. Take a listen.
About how you intend on getting the union vote when there's a large portion of the union workers that are gun enthusiasts, and you are actively trying to diminish your Second Amendment right and take away our guns. You're full of...
So he says, you're full of S. He says to a union worker, to a voter, you're full of S.
Now, go to shush. You're not allowed to own any weapons.
I'm sorry, I got to go back to that because I talked over it, and you need to hear him shushing this woman. So take a listen.
About how you intend on getting the union vote when there's a large portion of the union workers that are gun enthusiasts, and you are actively trying to diminish your Second Amendment right and take away our guns. You're full of...
All right, thank you. Now, go to shush.
So he says, you're full of S. Someone with Joe Biden's best interest at heart says, all right, thank you. And Biden, not only does he turn to her and say, shush, he sticks a finger up at her. You know, the shush finger? Shush is what he says to her. I am appalled on behalf of that woman.
All right, thank you. Now, go to shush. You're not allowed to own any weapons. I'm not taking your gun away at all. You need 100 rounds.
So when you were with Beto, when you said you're going to take our guns,
I did not say that. That's not true. I did not say that.
It's a viral video. Okay, this is not okay. Hold on. All right.
Hey, let's don't tell me there's a lot of guys.
You're
wanting. Man. I'm not worried. Hold on. Give me a break, man. Don't be such a worried.
So the same woman that he shushed is still trying to get him out of that scenario. Now, I want you to listen again, because there's a point at which Joe Biden says, let's take this outside. The president of the United States of America to a union worker with a totally legit question about the Second Amendment. And the president says, let's take this outside.
You're not allowed to own any weapon. I'm not taking your gun away at all. You need 100 rounds.
So when you were in Beto, when you said you're going to take our guns,
I did not say that. That's not true. I did not say that.
It's a viral video. Okay, this is not okay. Hold on. All right.
Hey, let's keep on talking. There's a lot of guys want to. I'm not worried. Hold on. Give me a break, man. Don't be such a worried guy.
It's really, really hard to hear on the radio, but trust me, President Biden says, let's take this outside. I mean, that 37 seconds, if I was Donald Trump, if I was the Republican Party nominee, be it Trump or anybody else, or Trump, because it's, going to be Trump, I would just wrap that up as a campaign ad and let that run over and over and over and over again. Because if that doesn't show that Joe Biden is disqualified to be president, I don't know what does. And I'm going to go back to, and I know that this is not a popular opinion with a lot of people, but I'm going to go back to, I feel sorry for Joe Biden. I truly, truly do. I believe that Joe Biden is demented. And by that, I don't mean that as an insult. I don't mean that he is stupid. I mean that Joe Biden is suffering from dementia. And I have watched someone deteriorate with dementia, and I know how they behave. And when someone has dementia, they are very, very, very quick to anger. And they're angry mostly at the predicament they're in because they don't remember things that they said. They don't remember. They don't know. They know that they're out of their element, but they don't want to admit it. And Joe Biden is a victim of elder abuse. And that woman that he shushed knows it. That woman that he shushed was trying to help him get out of the situation he got himself into with a shouting match with a union member about the Second Amendment. Now, this comes as, this is amazing timing. A Pentagon-funded study finds that current and former U.S. officials with dementia may pose a national security threat. That, according to a Pentagon-funded study that is bringing more scrutiny to aging politicians' recent lapses in cognitive abilities. Now, as you might imagine, the article has nary a mention of Joe Biden, not until the very end. And it simply just says, at 80, President Biden is the oldest person to hold the Oval Office in U.S. history and has made several public gaffes and stumbles, have made his mental and physical fitness a hotly debated topic as he runs for re-election in 2024. But what this article focuses on instead is two other lawmakers, and that is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who has access to more classified information than most other members of Congress due to his leadership position, and Senator Dianne Feinstein, who serves on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator Dianne Feinstein, who forgot her month-long absence and needed to be told how to vote. How the Pentagon can unironically report that U.S. officials with dementia may pose national security threats is amusing to me. And honestly, as we have had this discussion about aging politicians and whether or not there needs to be an age limit to politicians, never crossed my mind that the dementia could pose a national security threat. But it did cross the mind of the Pentagon. And now that they've done the research on this, I think it's more clear than ever before that we either have to have an age limit for members of Congress and the president, or we have to have some sort of official cognitive test that all lawmakers must take before taking office and must retake after every successful reelection. Or before their election, even. That would make better sense. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. Do you agree or disagree? Should we have an age limit on members of Congress and the president? Look, Americans are living longer than ever before. This was not a problem when our nation was founded. Because for Pete's sake, in the 1700s, average life expectancy was what, 45, 50, 55? It certainly wasn't what it is today. Near 80 is the average life expectancy now. So, yeah, we are getting better at medicine and science, but we're getting worse at politics because of these geriatrics that we have in our Congress and in the White House. 844-580-WDBO or use the open mic in the WDBO app.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Connected to our community. Talk local issues and events with Joe Kelley. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let Joe know what interests you. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
For somebody who's never read a book cover to cover, you're a pretty smart guy.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And honestly, I attribute a lot of that to my mom and dad. My parents taught me a lot, and then I've paid attention a lot. And I do stay very, very, very current on current events. I stay very active on current events. So I read a lot. I read all day. I don't read books. I don't like to read books. So there's that.
Hey, Joe, you said earlier in today's broadcast that you felt like you squandered your opportunity for an education.
Yeah.
Well, you've picked up a whole bunch of life experiences that trump anything you're ever going to learn in school. But if you want to go back, go back. Hell, I'm in my late 50s and I'm trying to finish up my master's. So take heart, move on.
Good for you. My mom did the same thing. My mom raised us as kids, and once we were in high school, late high school, it was actually when she went back to college and got her degree, and then she went back into the workforce, something that she hadn't done since, she was a young lady. So, yeah, I get that. Good for you. Congratulations. Moving on, talking about Joe Biden and his getting crossways, angry with a union worker in Michigan.
Joe, another question would be, who is this woman who's always shutting down the press conferences and keeping him from speaking with people? What position is that at the White House where you're the ringleader and not the president? Like, I thought the president was the ringleader, and he told people what to do, not the puppet master. Sorry for the turn signal.
I'm glad you're using your turn signal. Yeah, that's a good question. And the puppet master, the woman that President Biden shushes, is off camera. So I can't see who it is. Theoretically, it should not be a campaign person because his trip to Michigan was official, which means it's White House business, and you cannot mix White House business with campaign business. So it should not have been a campaign person. It should have been a White House person, but I'm not entirely sure who it was, as I said, because the person was off camera. But President Biden routinely says, I'm going to get in trouble for that. I'm going to get in trouble for taking that question. I'm going to get in trouble. I mean, yes, you're right. He's the president. He shouldn't get in trouble from anybody. But he clearly has someone else running the show in the background.
Right. We need age limits, but we also need more focus on cognitive abilities. Like if you're unable to do your job or unable to make a complete sentence or hold a civilized dialogue, I mean, those are things that need to be considered. If you just blank out and stop in the middle of a sentence, that's a dead note to retire.
Well, and then look at John Fetterman. I mean, John Fetterman doesn't have an age issue, but he does have a cognitive ability issue. And then, of course, now with the new dress code that he gets to wear cargo shorts, flip-flops, and a hoodie to Senate meetings and official Senate business is beyond the pale. I can't even imagine why the Senate would stoop to the lowest common denominator. Rather than having one man put on a suit, they're going to make everybody, except staff. Staff can do whatever they want. Staff has to wear suits, but elected members can now wear whatever they want. They can wear bikinis and Speedos on the floor of the Senate. Lovely. Way to go, America. Good job. Great job, Democrats. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Triple Team Traffic.
Just a footnote, I'm working from home, and I currently am better dressed than John Fetterman. We got a crash 408 eastbound at the Conway Toll Plaza. 2 left lanes are blocked. That's causing a lot of delays on the approach there. Still have that crash on the Turnpike southbound after the 417 with the right lane blocked. And a crash on Aloma at 551 South Palmetto Avenue. You've got some lanes blocked there. This report sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving. For victims of drunk and drug driving, your grief is unique, but you're not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call the 24-hour victim helpline, 877-MAD-HELP, or visit mad.org. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Orlando's news and talk. Insightful.
You tell the truth from your point of view.
Entertaining.
Man, that guy is a lot taller than he sounds on the radio.
And engaging.
When we hear you on the radio, it's a good thing.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
All right, my favorite headline of the day today. My favorite headline, I don't know if you've heard this, but it reads, Florida man sets fire to car belonging to ex-girlfriend who also happens to be his cousin. Florida man sets fire to car belonging to ex-girlfriend who also happens to be his cousin. That is when people use Ancestry.com rather than Tinder. You know, really, you're not supposed to be using Ancestry.com for that kind of stuff. You need to be using Tinder. You get your apps mixed up, and next thing you know, you're dating your cousin.
Hey, at least it's his ex
girlfriend, yes. And the car was a Jaguar, by the way. Jaguar. I don't know how you use it. I don't know what the proper pronunciation of that word is. And by the way, as a holdover from last hour, we were talking about old politicians and politicians that are demented, like Dianne Feinstein, like Mitch McConnell, like Joe Biden. I'm sure there are others, but go back to 1776. You go back to the 1700s. Life expectancy, I mean, they didn't have to worry about dementia like we do today because people didn't get that old. Hey, Google, what was life expectancy back in the 1700s?
On the website udel.edu, they say, the average life expectancy in England was about 39 to 40 years old. Do you want a little more context?
No. So clearly, I mean, these were young, 39 years old. There are very few people that are going to have dementia at 39 years old. So that was never a consideration. So when our founders put a minimum age, which is 35, to become president, it didn't cross their minds to put an upper limit because they knew that shortly after 35 anyway, you're going to die of natural causes or of an infection. I mean, you could die from a paper cut back in that day. Did they have paper back in that day? Yes, of course they had paper. That's what they wrote the Declaration of Independence on. All right, so the Daily Caller's Malik Larim took to the streets of Washington, D.C. to present liberals with a conundrum. If you can change your gender, can you change your race?
Do you think you can change your gender?
Physically, yeah.
No, I guess of course you can change your gender.
That doesn't mean that people are always going to respect you.
What you're born as is what you're born as. If you can change your gender, can you change your race?
No.
Why?
Because that's just how you're born.
Isn't your gender how you're also just born?
Yeah, I see where you're getting with, but right now we do have surgeries available to change gender. We don't have that for race yet. So maybe in the future that could be something. No, you can't change your race. I feel like one is actually a stagnant part of identity and the other one is serious, but it's in a different form. It's not the same concept. Race is your roots, where you were born with from, ages ago. So
isn't your gender what you're born with too?
That's true, but I think it's a different
If you can change your gender, can you change your race?
You cannot change your race. That's a whole different topic.
Why not?
Because I think there's a bit more history behind, if you're black or if you're, in general, a person of color, there's more history behind skin color than there's behind gender, I think.
Your race isn't your option, but your gender is.
If you can change your gender, can you change your race?
I don't think so, no.
Why?
Because, that doesn't make sense. Because, why would you want to do that? Because you're just, wouldn't you be, making yourself, more oppressed? Isn't that, kind of weird?
I couldn't just wake up and just, even if I bleached my skin, I know people that do that. I have friends that's from Jamaica and stuff, and I can't see them as a different person, like the whole Michael Jackson's thing. I mean, Mike was black. Even when he went light or white, he still was a black guy, so. She was born white. She said she was born in the wrong body, and she has now claims African American and is now transracial. So, what do you think about that?
Therapy.
What about therapy?
She needs it. You were born in the wrong body. Yeah, I wish I had Magic Johnson's body, but I didn't get it, and that's just what I was born with. I was a D1 scholarship college athlete, and I was scouted to play Major League Baseball, but I was told I was too short. So technically, I was born in the wrong body.
I just don't understand how you're going to go and say, oh, yeah, I'm white, and now I'm not. From one day to another. It doesn't really make sense.
I can't believe that people are having or attempting to have an intellectual conversation about this. There is no discussion to be had. It is so absurd to think that one can change gender or that one can change race, and it is absurd to suggest they're not the same thing. It's absolutely absurd. And case in point here, a teenage boy masquerading as a transgender girl has been crowned the homecoming queen for a high school in Missouri, of all places. Missouri, a pretty red state. The district shared a photo of an obvious male student celebrating being crowned homecoming queen for the city's Oak Park High School. So two boys were picked as the homecoming court. Now, the school district locked down the Twitter post, the X post, formerly known as Twitter. They locked up the comments so nobody could comment on it, but that doesn't prevent them, other people, from retweeting it with additional comments. So you can comment, just you have to retweet it. And there have been a lot of comments that have been posted. One writes, the fact that the school immediately locked down the comments is telling. They know that this is nonsense, pandering to the mentally ill, and they want everyone to play along. Another writes, imagine being so proud that a guy wins homecoming queen, so proud that you turn off comments. Imagine the heartbreak the other girls are having because they were told you're not enough because a man has stolen yet another opportunity from them. Another writes, crushing the patriarchy by choosing a man for homecoming queen. Keep up the good work. The transgender boy beat out 4 girls for the crown. A parent of a student who attends the school weighed in on the sham competition, wishing to remain anonymous. The parent said, I'm appalled at the school's continued support of the LGBT agenda. The schools say they are champions of all students, yet by embracing radical political statements like this, they're not only indoctrinate children, but they're placing certain student populations over others. Having 2 homecoming queens that are boys is a disgrace to the schools and the community. I hope more parents, community members, and district employees start speaking out and start protecting children. Remarkable. And again, this is in red state, Missouri, or as they like to say, Missouri. I never understood why they call it Missouri. It ends with an I. It's Missouri. President Trump says he will not be attending the second GOP presidential debate. He is not going to take part in the debate. He has instead announced plans to visit Detroit on the same date, which is September 27th. I think that is a week from Thursday. He is going to speak with current and former union members Of course, as you know, the United Auto Workers are on strike, demanding significant pay raises, a 4-day work week, and more. What do you think about Donald Trump once again refusing to join a presidential debate? 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. I've got a story of another person falling into. You got to be careful where you fall. Falling into one of the hot springs at Yellowstone National Park. Have you guys ever been to Yellowstone? Laurel, Paul, Greg?
Yes.
Have you guys been to Yellowstone?
Sure have, and I saw the hot springs.
You seen Old Yeller?
Yep.
Old Faithful, I'm sorry.
Old Faithful.
Old Yeller was the dog. That was the book I didn't read. I read
been
the
to Jellystone. I saw Yogi Bear. And
right. Have you been to Yellowstone?
Yes.
I mean, it's really impressive. But are there not signs everywhere that warn people to stay out of the hot springs?
Every 3 feet. That said, don't bring your dogs,
Yes.
keep your kids and watch it all the time, and don't get in the water, for goodness sakes.
Yes. There is, not only is the water hot, scaldingly hot, but it is acidic with sulfuric acid and other components. It is very, very dangerous. And if you're down for the gruesome details, I'll share it with you coming up next. Stay with us here on the Joe Kelley Show. You can join me at 844-580-WDBO, 844-580-9326. Use the open mic and the WDBO app. Check out the Joe Kelley Show podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If you ever have to leave the show early and you want to hear how it ended up, if you want to hear the early part of the show that you might have missed, maybe you're going to be out of town for a couple days, you want to get caught up, just check out the Joe Kelley Show podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, look for the Joe Kelley Show on Facebook. Give that page a like. We would certainly appreciate that. We are growing in leaps and bounds here on the Joe Kelley Show, and be sure and tell a friend about it as well. We thank you in advance. We'll continue coming up next.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Breaking news to lively debates, covering the issues that matter to you.
I make it a point to listen to Joe Kelley when I need to fully understand what's happening in the news.
Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
All right, I'm going to caution you. What we're going to talk about here is a little gruesome. There's a little bit of gruesimity to the discussion we're going to have here in the next couple of moments. Yellowstone National Park, it is one of the crown jewels, if not the crown jewel, of the U.S. National Park System. Our U.S. National Parks are truly amazing. I love our U.S. National Parks. Here, fun fact. I don't know if you guys knew this. My father, my late father, worked in the summertime at Yellowstone National Park as a garbage man. And Ansel Adams, who was one of history's greatest landscape photographers. If you go to a bookstore or look online for Ansel Adams, you'll see his black and white imagery. But Ansel Adams would stand out somewhere and for hours and days and weeks to get the right lighting and everything, and he would take these beautiful pictures. Anyhow, my father dated Ansel Adams' daughter. At least my dad used to tell me that he dated Ansel Adams' daughter. So I came this close to having Ansel Adams as my grandfather, which I thought would have been really, really cool. Anyhow, so Yellowstone National Park, it's where they have all these geysers. Like underneath it, it's basically a volcano, right? And so once again, somebody has fallen into one of the geysers at Yellowstone National Park. It happened in June, but they're just now releasing the details of what happened. The guy was 23 years old, named Colin Scott. He was looking for somewhere to, quote, hot pot. Hot pot. Now, when I say hot pot, what does that mean to you, hot pot?
Cook your own food in a thing of water, like
right?
Hot pot restaurants.
That's exactly what I would think of from hot pot. It's an Asian restaurant where they serve you shrimp and chicken and vegetables, but evidently in terms there, hot pot means taking a plunge into a hot spring. There's a difference though between taking a plunge in a hot spring and taking a plunge in a volcanic, acidic, hot spring. I mean, that's just dumb. So this guy was, according to the report, dipping his finger in to test the temperature, and while dipping his finger in, he slipped and fell in.
Natural selection.
I hate that. I hate that, Paul. I really do. But it's right. You're accurate. I hate that, but you're accurate. He was found dead later the same day, his body floating on the water. Rescue officials were not able to reach him, and a thunderstorm forced the rescue into retreat. When they returned the next day, nothing remained of the man except for his wallet and his flip-flops. Is it wrong now that I want to know what brand of flip-flops he had to withstand the volcanic water that he was in? I can't even wear flip-flops, but I want to know the brand of flip-flops that can withstand the sulfuric acid and the hot temperature. It's 199 degrees. What is boiling point? 212? Is that boiling? So this is 199 degree water. It's going to scald you no matter what. It's going to kill you no matter what. The geothermal ponds, pools, and geysers. And the further down you go into the water, the hotter it gets. Well, that doesn't make sense, does it? Wouldn't hot water rise higher? Doesn't hot water rise?
You're getting the hot water from the core of the earth, so it's
so the closer you get to the core, you're getting towards the hotter water. Okay. They're all fenced off. There's plenty of prominent signs there. And as I was reading this article, this article from AFP. AFP is basically the French version of the Associated Press. It's Agency French Press. And so they do a recap of all the people who've died in geysers.
Why is French? Why are the French,
I don't know.
French doing this?
I don't know, but I like it.
Was this guy French?
I don't know. No, I don't know. They're just. I mean, AP does stories in France, so why wouldn't the AFP do stories?
I guess so.
Here,
You're right.
So they did a story. So they report also that in 1981. David Allen Kerwin and Ronald Ratliff were traveling through Yellowstone Park with Ratliff's dog, Moosey. Well, Moosey got away from the pair and dived into the hot spring. Oh. Yeah, the dog. And this spring, was 200 degrees Fahrenheit. How does that not just instantly vaporize at 200 degrees Fahrenheit? Moosey yelped in pain.
Moosey had a chance to even yelp?
That blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind.
Just to make a yelp means she was, Moosey was alive for a half a second.
Paddling acid for, treading acid for a few moments. And so both of the men rushed to the dog's aid. One of them, despite pleas from other park visitors, Kerwin dived into the boiling hot water to retrieve his friend's dog. I'm sorry, I love dogs as much as anybody. But if my dog goes into a hot spring, it's staying there. So
these people obviously did not understand. They think it's a hot tub. They think you're just going to get in and get out. They don't understand.
So he swam out to the dog, which in and of itself is amazing, quite frankly. That should be like an Olympic event, don't you think? Like, see who can withstand longest. He attempted to lift him out, but was unable to do so. He disappeared under the water as he let go of Moosey before returning to the surface and attempting to escape the pool. He did remarkably survive, but not well. He was blinded by the experience. When somebody tried to remove his shoes, his skin came off with it.
No, I'd rather be dead.
Third-degree burns over his entire body, including his head.
Since
1870, 22 scalding deaths have been reported in the park's hot springs.
They sell a book at Yellowstone with all the deaths in the park, and a good majority of them are spring deaths.
What a morbid, terrible book that I can't wait.
We bought it.
That I can't wait to read cover to cover.
I have it.
I have no doubt you do. You are as macabre as I would expect. That's what we love about you, Laurel, is you're very, very macabre. Or is it macabre? Anyhow. It's 6:30. You're listening to The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. Join the conversation now by using the open mic in the WDBO app. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's news and talk, WDBO.
Ancestry.com. Don't swipe left or right. Oh, you're killing me, bro. You're killing me.
Yes, definitely not where you're going to find your dating match at Ancestry.com. 844-580-WDBO or hit me up in the open mic in the WDBO app.
Hey, Joe, this is James in Deltona. I've been burned really bad. My fault as a kid, ignorance. But I also grew up around Lassen Volcanic National Park out west in the Sierra. And any water that has a different color to it and it stinks really, really bad, yeah, you don't even put your finger in it. The bacteria then burn you, go through your system. Yeah, ignorance.
Yeah, that's bad stuff. You definitely want to avoid that.
Hey, Joe, regarding Trump and the debate, I'm pretty sure he won't attend because he doesn't want to talk about January 6th anymore, like the rest of us. And he doesn't want to talk about the phony baloney indictments he's been receiving over the last year to 2 years, and the documents and all the other nonsense they'll try to just fill the entire 4 or 5 hours of this event with.
And, you know, I do understand strategically why Trump doesn't do it, though I, as a voter, as someone who is considering which Republican candidate will get my vote, I would really like to see them all on the same stage. And I realize you can't always get what you want. It sounds like a song. I should write a song along those lines. You know, you can't always get what you want. Something
We'll work on that.
We'll work. Yeah, it needs a little bit of work. We had a question earlier about Missouri and Missouri.
I actually used to live in Missouri, and you pronounce it Missouri because the only other way you can pronounce it is misery.
You know, it's kind of like the state of Nevada. Anybody who lives in Nevada, who has ever lived in Nevada, pronounces it Nevada. Anyone who's never stepped foot in Nevada calls it Nevada. Nevada. I lived in Las Vegas, Nevada for a few years, and I learned that it was pronounced Nevada. You know the Hollywood Walk of Fame where they have all the stars? Would you care to take a guess? How many stars do you think they have on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? Just throw out a number.
I'm going to go with
50. Laurel says 50.
I'm going to go with 500.
500. Greg, do you have a guess?
250.
250. The actual number is, I feel like we're on the Showcase Showdown. You've all come far under. The actual number is 2,763 names. Well, one name is going to be removed. Care to guess whose name that is? Donald Trump. They're going to remove Donald Trump's name from the Hollywood Walk of Stars. Did you realize that the Ford Suburban is on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? A truck.
Anyone can get a star. They just have to pay for it. And you have to have signatures and pay for it.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Paul, because people act like it's a big honor to be given a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame are managed by the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. And you have to have X amount of signatures. I don't know what it is. It's like 1,000 signatures, which anybody can get. And then you have to pay so much money. And I don't remember how much money it is. Hang on. Hey, Google, how much does it cost to get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame?
$75,000. On the website walkoffame.com, they say, there is a $75,000 sponsorship fee upon selection. The fee is used to pay for the creation and installation of the star, as well as maintenance of the Walk of Fame. Price subject to change. I also found an answer to this question. Can anyone get a star on the Walk of Fame? Do you want to hear it?
Yes.
On the website walkoffame.com, they say, the criteria for receiving a star consists of the following: professional achievement, longevity in the category of 5 years or more, contributions to the community, and the guarantee that the celebrity will attend the dedication ceremony if selected.
How interesting. So the celebrity has to be there. So $75,000, Paul, we could get a star. And there are, by the way, radio DJs that have stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
The reason why I know this is that a good friend of mine has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Right.
Shotgun
So anybody
Tom
can
Kelly.
Yeah, anybody can get it, but it is Donald Trump's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame that is causing a problem. And ever since he came down the escalator at Trump Tower and announced his candidacy, people have been vandalizing his star. People will take sledgehammers to it. They've had to rebuild it time and time and time and time and time again. They've had to remake the star because people take sledgehammers, people spray paint it, people dump tar on it, people otherwise deface and vandalize Donald Trump's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So the city leaders agree that the memorial, the Donald Trump star, has to go. But there is no consensus on how to do it. They've never had to do it before, which begs the question, if you've never had to do it before, why do you have to do it now? I honestly couldn't care less about anybody that's on the Walk of Fame. I was actually going to print out the list and share with you all of the people that have a star. That's when I realized it was 2,763 names, and I decided that there was no amount of toner that was worth printing that many pages. But certainly out of 2,763 names, some of those people are nefarious. Some of those people, maybe before they got the star or after they got the star, were found to be pedophiles or criminals or thieves or other scoundrels and ne'er-do-wells. But they still have their star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Donald Trump cannot be the only controversial person on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And yet they want to get rid of Donald Trump's star, and I think that is laughable, and shame on them. How pathetic the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce for seeking to get rid of the Donald Trump star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. This as New York City lawmakers had proposed the removal of artwork honoring such people as George Washington, the founder of our country, the father of our country, Thomas Jefferson, and Christopher Columbus, because of the historical figures' controversial pasts. Oh, remember, we only honor saints. We only honor perfect people. I don't know how to break this to you, but there are no perfect people. The Democrat-led New York City Council's Cultural Affairs Committee is scheduled to hold a public hearing on a proposal to remove artworks that depict a person who owned enslaved persons or directly benefited economically from slavery, or who participated in systemic crimes against indigenous peoples or other crimes against humanity. Shoo, that was a lot. The bill would stipulate that if the Public Design Commission determines that a statue or monument honors a person who committed crimes against humanity but votes not to remove the artwork, then the city is now required to install an explanatory plaque about the misdeeds of the historical figure. So if they decide to keep Thomas Jefferson or George Washington artwork up, they have to put a plaque that tells us why George Washington and Thomas Jefferson are terrible people. Again, it's sad. It is absolutely sad that we've come to this point where we only have perfect people. We can only allow perfect people. It doesn't matter what they're famous for, what they're known for. It doesn't matter what their greatest achievement was. If they did one bad thing in their past, to hell with them. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. Or hit me up, HMU in the open mic.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Talk and discussion on the latest breaking national news.
Crude oil prices continue to fall.
Local news.
You're not going to have Disney have its own government in Central Florida.
And stories that matter to you. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let your voice be heard on the Joe Kelley Show.
Oops. Now I'm in trouble. I just said something in the chat room, and I didn't realize my wife was listening. So I bought a soda. She asked me to pick up a soda for her, and I bought a soda last night on the way home. I went to Ford's Garage on the way home, and I bought a Coke Zero. And literally like a 12-ounce styrofoam cup of soda was $4.99. $4.99 for a soda. That's how they get you, right, at restaurants, is through the sodas. I mean, at this point, I'm just drink water. We've really cut back on so many things. Have you guys been cutting back too, just given all the inflation and everything? I mean, I'm canceling subscriptions. Some subscriptions that I actually use, a lot of subscriptions I don't. But I've been cutting back on things. What have you guys been cutting back on?
Our streaming services, is our big one. We've been having many fights about which one we're going to cancel out, because I like watching some and he likes watching another. But it's just everything's too expensive, particularly the streaming services now.
No kidding.
We cut back on going out to eat and having outside food. We make a lot of our stuff now and try to make it last.
That was the same on our side, cutting back on going out, unfortunately. Yeah.
Honestly, and I'm at the point now where I'll just buy a loaf of bread, and I've got a jar of peanut butter and a bottle of honey. And, peanut butter and honey last forever. The bread doesn't, but peanut butter and honey last forever. And I'll just make a peanut butter and honey sandwich. Crunchy peanut butter, of course. Of course. But that to me could be dinner. But of course tonight it's going to be.
You've just talked me into quitting Coke Zero too, so I'm done with that.
I'm going to be having Bluebell chocolate chip ice cream for dinner tonight, and
go good for you. And you're going to finish. You're going to still read your book.
I'm going to finish reading my book. That one book I finally have read. All right, thanks you guys so much. We love you all. Thank you for listening to the Joe Kelley Show. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. Check out the Joe Kelley Show Facebook page on Facebook as well. We'll see you back here tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock right here on WDBO.
Something grand is coming to Nemacolin. Opening fall 2023, the Grand Lodge will surprise and delight with 56 stunning suites and 5-star butler services. Indulge in libations at the Circle Bar and the Study before you savor the new and enchanting Fawn and Fable restaurant, where the best parts of a traditional steakhouse and a fairy tale castle create a magical dining experience. With fine dining, a spa, and over 100 adventure, golf, art, and wildlife experiences, whatever your imagination holds, Nemacolin has the key. Visit nemacolin.com for more information.